It was a normal Monday. The sound of cars, people talking, and street vendors shouting filled the air. I was holding my backpack on one shoulder and a shopping bag in the other. In the bag, there was bread and milk, things I forgot to buy over the weekend. Everything was under control, more or less. I looked at the clock on my phone. 7:45 a.m. Great, I thought sarcastically. I'm already late. My routine was crazy. Work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., gym when I had energy, and then study English before bed. I always told myself, this week will be different. I will be organized. But who had time for that? I walked faster, dodging people and almost tripping on the broken sidewalk. Finally, I arrived at the bus stop. The bus stop was crowded, as usual. People with headphones, mothers with impatient kids, and workers holding briefcases with tired faces. I tried to catch my breath while adjusting the strap of my backpack. Suddenly, I noticed something. In the corner of the bench, there was a young woman sitting with her head down. Her shoulders were shaking. She looked like she was crying. Should I ask if she's okay? I thought. A part of me wanted to ignore it and focus on my day. I was already late, and helping could mean more problems. But something inside me said, she might need your help. I took a deep breath and walked towards her. Hi, are you okay? I asked, trying to sound calm. The young woman looked up. Her eyes were red and puffy. She looked about 18 or 19 years old. She had an old backpack and was holding her hands like she was trying to stay calm. I lost my wallet, she said between sobs. I don't know how to get home. I looked at the girl again. She was clearly upset, and people around her were pretending not to see. I took a deep breath and said to myself, yes, I'm late. But how can I ignore someone who needs help? I opened my wallet and took out a few coins. Do you need money for the bus? I asked. The girl hesitated, looking embarrassed. Yes, but only if it's not a problem. It's okay, I said, giving her the coins. Let's go. I'm also waiting for the bus. The bus arrived, and we both got on. I paid for my ticket and hers. We sat together on the last row. Thank you so much, she said, her voice still shaking. I lost my wallet this morning, and I didn't know what to do. You're very kind. It's nothing, I said, smiling. These things happen. Are you going home now? Yes, she said. I was going to visit a friend, but I'll go back home instead. I need to cancel my credit cards and call my mom. We didn't talk much after that, but I could see she was calming down. Her face still looked sad, but now there was a small smile. A few minutes later, the girl stood up. This is my stop, she said. Thank you again. I will never forget this. You're welcome. Take care, I replied, watching her leave. As she got off the bus, I noticed something fall from her backpack. It was a small brown envelope. Wait! I called out, but the bus doors were already closing. I looked at the envelope on the floor. For a moment, I thought about leaving it there. But something told me it might be important. I picked up the envelope and looked at it. There was no name or writing on it. It was light, like there wasn't much inside. The bus continued moving, and I thought about what to do. Should I open it? No, that wouldn't be right. Maybe I could find her later and give it back. But right now, I was running out of time. The bus stop near my office was coming up, and I still needed to clock in before my boss noticed I was late. I put the envelope in my bag and decided to think about it later. It's probably nothing, I told myself. But deep down, I had a strange feeling that this small act of kindness would bring more complications than I expected. That day, my mind was all over the place. Meetings, deadlines, and my boss asking for updates every 5 minutes. But no matter how busy I was, I couldn't stop thinking about the brown envelope in my bag. What could it be? I thought during a quiet moment at my desk. I tried to focus on my work, but my curiosity kept growing. Finally, lunchtime came. I grabbed my bag and went to a quiet spot in the cafeteria. I took out the envelope and held it in my hands for a moment. It felt light, almost empty. Maybe it's just some papers or a receipt, I thought. Nothing important. But when I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. Inside, there were a few folded bills, about $50, and a small piece of paper. I unfolded the paper and saw a short, handwritten message. Trust me. Don't tell anyone. Below the message, there were numbers 47.8239 minus 122.2841. I stared at the note, confused. The handwriting was shaky, like someone had written it in a hurry. What did it mean? Trust who? And why not tell anyone? The numbers looked like coordinates, but I wasn't sure. I didn't have time to investigate. I folded the paper and put it back in the envelope with the money. This doesn't make any sense, I whispered to myself. What did I get myself into? I tried to remember more details about the girl on the bus. What was her name? Where was she going? I realized I hadn't asked. All I knew was that she had lost her wallet and needed help. Now, I was holding something that seemed important. Maybe even dangerous. The afternoon dragged on. I kept checking the time, wishing for the workday to end. Every time my boss walked by, I quickly minimized my screen, feeling guilty even though I wasn't doing anything wrong. Finally, at 5:30, I packed my things and left the office. The envelope was still in my bag, weighing on my mind. As I walked toward the bus stop, the streets were busy with people heading home. I told myself I would figure everything out later, in the quiet of my apartment. But then, I noticed something strange. A man in a dark jacket was walking behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was a busy street, after all. But after a few minutes, I realized he wasn't just walking. He was following me. I turned a corner, pretending to look at my phone, and glanced back. The man was still there, keeping his distance but staying close enough to see me. My heart started to race. Was this a coincidence? Or did it have something to do with the envelope? I clutched my bag tighter and walked faster, trying to stay calm. I reached the bus stop and waited, hoping the man would keep walking. But he didn't. He stopped a few meters away, leaning against a pole and pretending to look at his phone. The bus finally arrived, and I got on quickly. I found a seat near the back, my eyes scanning the street through the window. The man stayed on the sidewalk, watching as the bus pulled away. For the rest of the ride, I couldn't relax. My hands were shaking as I held my bag close. When I got home, I locked the door and sat down on the couch, taking a deep breath. The envelope was still in my bag, its mystery growing bigger with every passing hour. What do I do now? I whispered to myself. I sat on the couch, trying to catch my breath. My bag was on the floor, and the brown envelope inside seemed heavier than ever. My heart was racing. What is happening? What did I do wrong? I kept replaying everything in my mind, the girl on the bus, the message in the envelope, and the man who had followed me. None of it made sense. I stood up, walked to the window, and peeked outside. The street was quiet. No sign of the man in the dark jacket. I sighed in relief and locked the door, turning all the bolts. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't safe. I sat back down, pulled out my phone, and took the note from the envelope. The strange numbers stared back at me. I typed them into the search bar, hoping to find some kind of explanation. The search results weren't helpful. Some pages showed coordinates, others had random links. I clicked on a map, and the numbers led to a spot outside the city, a quiet area I didn't recognize. What's there? I whispered to myself. I looked at the note again. Trust me. Don't tell anyone. Should I trust the girl? Or was I being dragged into something dangerous? I thought about calling the police. They'll know what to do, I thought, reaching for my phone. But then I froze. What if this was something serious? What if the girl was in trouble, and calling the police would make things worse for her? I put the phone down and shook my head. No. Not yet. I need more information. The hours passed, and the sky grew darker. I tried to distract myself, watching TV and scrolling through my phone, but my mind kept going back to the envelope. Every sound outside made me jump, and I found myself checking the locks on the door again and again. At some point, I must have fallen asleep on the couch. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of heavy knocking jolted me awake. My heart leapt to my throat as I sat up, panicked. The knocking echoed through the room, loud and forceful. I froze, staring at the door. It wasn't a friendly knock, it was angry, impatient. Who could it be? I tiptoed to the door, careful not to make a sound. My hands trembled as I peeked through the peephole. Outside, I saw a shadowy figure. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew it wasn't anyone I knew. Open the door, a deep voice demanded from the other side. My breath caught. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding louder with every step. The knocking came again, harder this time. I clutched my phone, debating whether to call the police now. Stay calm, I whispered to myself. But calm was the last thing I felt. Who was this man? And what did he want from me? The pounding on the door made my entire body freeze. I didn't dare move, barely even breathing. Open the door, the man's voice growled from the other side, low and threatening. I clutched my phone, my heart racing. But just as I was about to dial the police, the pounding stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. I crept closer to the door, peeking through the peephole again. The man was gone. The hallway outside my apartment was empty. I waited a few moments, straining to hear any sound, before finally unlocking the door, just a crack, and peeking out. To my shock, it wasn't the man who appeared on the other side. "It's you!" I exclaimed, opening the door wider. It was the girl from the bus, the one I had helped earlier. She looked pale and nervous, her eyes darting down the hallway. "I need the envelope," she said in a low, hurried voice. "Please, it's very important." For a moment, I couldn't process what was happening. My thoughts collided in confusion. "The envelope?" I repeated, feeling both angry and confused. "What's going on? Why was someone following me? What are you not telling me?" Her face turned even paler. She stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind her. Please, just give me the envelope, she begged. I don't have time to explain everything. No, I said firmly, crossing my arms. Not until you tell me what's really going on. What's in the envelope? Who is that man? And why am I involved in this? She hesitated, looking like she was about to cry again. Finally, she took a deep breath and sat down on the couch. The money in the envelope, she began, her voice trembling, it's for my mom. She's sick. She needs a surgery, and I didn't know what else to do. The numbers in the note, they're the address of a clinic that agreed to help us if we pay up front. Her hands fidgeted nervously. He's a debt collector. My family owes him money, and when I dropped the envelope, he must have seen it. He thinks there's more cash inside than there really is. He's been after me for weeks. Before I could respond, there was another loud bang on the door. My heart leapt, and the girl's eyes widened in fear. Stay here, I whispered. I tiptoed to the door and peeked through the peephole. It was him, the man in the dark jacket, glaring at the door like he could see through it. I know you're in there, he said in a low, menacing tone. Just give me the envelope, and no one gets hurt. My hands shook as I turned back to the girl. She looked terrified, clutching her bag tightly. We need to do something, she whispered. An idea formed in my mind. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was all I had. I stepped closer to the door, raised my voice, and said loudly, the envelope is gone. I gave it to the police this afternoon. They know everything. There was silence on the other side. For a moment, I thought it hadn't worked. But then I heard footsteps retreating down the hallway. I waited, holding my breath, until I was sure he was gone. The girl exhaled in relief, her hands trembling. Thank you, she whispered. I leaned against the door, still shaken. This isn't over, I said quietly. But we need to figure out what to do next, together. I sat at a small table near the window, watching the world outside. The cafe was quiet, with soft music playing in the background. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. It had been a week since everything happened, but my mind was still replaying that night. I sipped my tea, lost in thought, when the sound of the door opening caught my attention. Hi, she said, her voice soft but warm. It was the girl from the bus. Hi, I replied, smiling. I'm glad you came. She sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. For a moment, we just sat in silence, letting the calm atmosphere settle around us. Then, she looked up at me with a mix of gratitude and guilt. I owe you an explanation, she began. I nodded, leaning in to listen. The man you saw, she said, he's a debt collector. My family borrowed money from him months ago when my mom got sick. We couldn't pay it back on time, and he started threatening us. Her voice trembled slightly as she continued. The money in the envelope wasn't enough to pay the debt, but it was all I could gather. It was meant for my mom's surgery. I thought I could convince him to leave us alone if I gave him something. I felt a wave of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of empathy. And the numbers? I asked. She smiled faintly. They were the coordinates for a clinic outside the city. It's a small place that offers affordable care for people in difficult situations. My mom had an appointment there, but I needed to pay a deposit first. She paused, looking down at her coffee. After that night, I used the money to pay the clinic. My mom had her surgery 2 days later. She's doing much better now. Hearing those words brought a sense of relief I hadn't realized I needed. I'm so glad to hear that, I said sincerely. But what about the debt collector? Is he still bothering you? She shook her head. After you told him the police had the envelope, he backed off. I think he got scared. For now, we're safe. We both sat quietly for a moment, letting the weight of her story sink in. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You didn't have to help me that day. You could have ignored me, but you didn't. And because of that, my mom is alive. Her words hit me like a warm wave. I hadn't done anything extraordinary, just a small act of kindness. But that small act had changed everything. I always thought kindness was simple, I said, breaking the silence. But now I see that sometimes it takes courage too. She smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. And sometimes it changes everything. As we finished our drinks, I felt a deep sense of connection with her. We didn't exchange phone numbers or make plans to meet again. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Walking out of the cafe, I felt lighter. Helping someone, even in the smallest way, could ripple out in ways I'd never imagined. The world felt a little brighter, and I promised myself to keep choosing kindness even when it wasn't easy. Questions, comprehension. Why did the narrator help the young woman? What was inside the envelope? How did the narrator face the man? Creative challenge. Write in the comments, have you ever helped someone in a difficult situation? Share your story. Did you enjoy this story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Kindness and learning go hand in hand.